Hello, it's Thomas from VFX Rex again, and just doing another project. I finished rendering a first pass of shot 6 of the flying creatures. The render actually just finished right now, which was a Lightwave render, and I was messing around with the lighting a little bit and wondering about possibly re-rendering it. But that finished. So what I want to do is at least a temp comp of shot 6. And so let's get into that now. Let's see. Here's an early version of shot 6 comp I did. Okay. On this one, I added the Saturn rings into the shot. Actually, it's not Saturn. It's this distant planet. I'm not 100% sure I'm gonna add those because I think the planet is actually too close to be actually in the shot. But I might move it over to the right a little bit and just show the very edge of it. I think you would see a little bit of it from this angle. So there's like this planet in the sky, but we're not really aimed at the planet. We're aimed more at the sun area. And interesting, it's not tracking with it. I thought I already did that track once. So I was considering putting the planet into the shot, and I guess that's the only version I did. I can actually do that. We can give it a try right here. As to putting the planet in there, I don't want it that close. It'll probably be almost off screen, like it's gonna just be a shape, kind of almost off screen, in the shot. But I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna do that. It might add a little bit of interest to the composition to put that in there. Basically, the Saturn type, it's actually a render I did in Lightwave. I have it set to screen mode, and this is what that looks like. And what I want to do is actually open Mocha. And we're going to hope that Mocha can handle this sky because there's just not much to it. There's not much on it. So I'm going to say new project. And I'm going to choose shot 6. Plate. And I'm going to choose the plate. Okay. And then I'm going to set the frame weight to 29.97, which that's what I'm using for worlds. So we open this up. Now the problem is that there's not much for Mocha to grab onto in order to do a nice track here. But maybe it can do that. Let's see. Okay, let's just. How do you get it to the start? By the way, you'll notice there's like a couple strange colored frames there, and I'm gonna just clip that from the final. God, you can't grab that, huh? There we go. So then let's just try it and see if this can handle it. And what maybe I'll just track the sun, because that stays in the shot pretty much the whole time. So, okay, just right click there. First you left click, you create your region, and you can change it a little bit. I mean, it's actually up here. I'm just afraid maybe Mocha can't grab that. There's not a lot of information there for it to grab, but maybe it can. I mean, we could try that because the sun's gonna have some lens distortion and stuff on it that's not actually accurate. So maybe I will try this. Let's try tracking the actual area where the actual planet rings are gonna be instead of the sun. If that doesn't work, we can use the sun. We could even track those mountains, but that's really on a different perspective. Those are too close. So let's just try this. There's T for track. You can track in reverse or forward. Let's go forward. So just push it. It's pretty much automated. Boom. Let it do its job. It's either going to work or kind of fail. It looks like it's attempting to track that right now. You can see the frames moving here. I really like Mocha because it can often give you a really rock solid track. And it's great for doing stuff like adding signs on the side of a car or of a bus or something like that, or changing things. But it's really good at grabbing you know, something that doesn't have anything on it at all, and it seems to be tracking it, just a slight gradation. So it's really actually this like great tracker, and you can even track things that go partially off screen. Like if I would have tracked in reverse and started with this over in this area, that would go off screen near the front of the shot, but it still it still can kind of work. So it's really great in that way. So you can see I have my Zydax shirt on. They were really cool to give me that shirt when I bought my computer. And little Buddy the German Shepherd always keeps me company and guards VFX Rex from bad guys entering. So he's a great dog. Let's see. So this is almost done with the track. And okay, almost done. And boom, that's done now. So I'm gonna say export tracking data, and I'm gonna say there's different settings, and I'm gonna say transform data, position, scale, and rotation for this. And I'm gonna say copy to clipboard. Okay. Then I go back into After Effects, and I'm going to say layer, new, let's say adjustment layer. Can use other things. And I'm going to go to the first frame, and I'm just going to say Control V to paste that. We copied it, so now we paste it. And I'm not sure if that's... Actually, it looks pretty good. Let's see if it's good. Let's see that. So I think I want to actually end with the planet barely in the frame, as opposed to ending with it really in there. And basically, I'm just going to take this layer and I'm going to parent it under the adjustment layer, which I can also drag it and stuff, but I'm just going to say adjustment layer, and I'm going to hide the adjustment layer because sometimes with Mocha it will actually show that partially. And I also want to take the planet and just I just want to take down the visibility a little bit, so it's just kind of in the background, very subtle. And if you noticed, I put motion blur on, so later when I render that, it will have motion blur with the movement and not just look like a picture stuck on, which will also help integrate it a little bit. Um, where did it go? This might add a little bit of coolness. It might add a little bit of confusion. People are like, what is that in the corner? So let me just see how that works. Actually, that track is better than the hand track I did in Lightwave of the... it's actually a perfect track. I mean, this is what I love about Mocha. It's really a perfect track. Okay, so there's a couple other things coming. I'll discuss that in the middle. And of course, we push save. Let's save this. Save as. And I'm going to go back to shot 6. Okay, and then now what I want to do is actually import the flying creatures. Hopefully this is fun. I have had some issues where it's very strange. It seems to be only on this project so far where sometimes I'm getting a strange alpha like this, like black outline around mostly the flying creatures, mostly in the distance. So I'm going to really hope that doesn't happen. And I call them birds. They're not birds. They're flying creatures. So I'm going to say import. And I'm going to interpret the footage as 29.97. And I'm going to say pre-multiplied for now. Let's see how that looks. And then what I want to do is check this one too. Yeah, that's at 29.9 seconds. It has an alpha, but there's nothing behind it. So I'm actually just going to interpret this one without an alpha. It doesn't need it. I don't know if that makes a difference. Okay, so I'm going to take the flying creatures, which I called birds. They're not birds. And I'm going to drag that. This is kind of like an A over B comp. But there's a little more to it that's coming. So I want to show you that I'm going to do a couple tricks to make it a little bit more than just an A over B comp. And actually, this one, the alpha looks really good. It did not create like these black lines around it. Okay, so what I want to do is let's just save this. And I'm just going to push play and let's see how this looks. But there's going to be a change I'm going to put onto it. And of course, you know, the creatures are in front of where the planet rings would be. So I made sure to put the planet behind the creatures. So let's just push play and let it go into RAM. And this is, let's see, it's interesting because I rendered the creatures with fog on them so that the further back ones had more fog than the ones in the foreground, and yet they really look kind of dark in the back there. So I might have to actually roto them and put them a little more back in the background. Now what I should have done is rendered all those distant birds on a separate pass. So I don't have to do any roto, and I still could do that. I could re-render those separately right now, and just be able to have a little bit more control over the distant flying creatures as opposed to the close-up ones. Okay, that looks pretty good. It looks a little funky. Not too bad. So they just need to go back, these guys. So it's either roto or I re-render it as a separate pass. This up front flying creature, you can see opens his mouth right around there. And I like, let's see, so he's got like this pretty cool beak that kind of opens up completely, but I actually made it open more like a regular bird beak just for this shot so that it didn't show up yet, because later we're going to show that reveal of the face opening. But you can also see that there's a wing that comes in the shot before the creature does, and I'm probably going to roto that out too, because I don't want to, it looks strange with that wing there for a second. All in all, I'm pretty happy with this. Um, actually, it's possible again that he's flying a little slow, but let's see something. It's interesting. I don't see this color changing background that I saw before with this flicker. So I guess there's nothing to cut out. Before there was a strange color flicker on the first few frames that I'm just not seeing now, which is a good thing. Okay, so all right, so a few things I want to do is this. Okay, this here is the sun. And this here red area is actually the lens flare from that sun. And that's how it was rendered in Unreal. So one thing I want to do is I want to, you can see that his wing goes right in front of the sun. Well, I think I want to make, on that one frame, make the sun kind of look like it's bright behind the wing a little bit. And I also want to make sure this is actually like a lens flare. And the flare is the closest thing to the camera because it's actually inside the camera. So I want to make sure that the flare is in front of those creatures as opposed to them looking like they're going in front of the flare. Like it looks like a binary star in the distance. It's not. It's a flare. So what I want to do is take the frame here. This is just a trick I'm going to do. We'll see how it looks. Okay, so I'm going to take this last frame actually, and I'm going to push Control D to duplicate it. And then I'm going to say layer time, and I'm going to say freeze frame. Okay, then I'm going to take this mask and sort of, and this may work, it may not work. I may have to generate some specific artwork if this doesn't work. And I just use the wheel to scroll out like that. And then what I want to do, okay, so what I want to do is just take this and just blur that a little bit. So now what I'm going to do, actually there was no reason to freeze that. I'm gonna undo the freeze. I'll just track the reflection with the lens flare. I will track the lens flare with the mask as it goes across the screen. Okay, so I'm gonna actually try dragging this above the other layers so that the flying creatures actually kind of fly behind that a little bit. And let's see if that starts to work. So what I want to do is go back to that last frame again and just keyframe that mask that was around the sun lens flare, and then we'll go to the first frame and we'll move that over so that this mask is tracking the sun, and you can see it starts to obscure the flying creatures a little bit. And let's go to the middle and make sure that it's tracking properly, and you can see that it actually is covering the other creatures a little bit. So that's actually cool because it's a lens flare, so it would obscure them a bit. Okay, and I'm trying to think what to do with this area because this would technically do the same because there's a little bit of flare around the sun, but there's actually not a lot of creatures directly within the flare range anyway on that, so I'm not sure if it's as big of a deal as the the larger flare there, but it probably should have some flare effect, particularly on this creature here. Maybe it's just going to be so minute, but maybe right in here, right in there. And then I'm wondering how that flare would affect the foreground creature. I think it actually is going to, and I'm going to make a separate. I'm going to make a separate separate mask for that. For the actual sun itself. So I'm going to say Control D again. Let's drag it back up again. And I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to make, okay, so now it's completely covering everything. So I'm just going to make this mask around this flare area. Okay. And okay, and then I'm going to take this, and this one might require some interesting effects, different masking to make this work. But let's just blur that a little bit so there's like a little bit of a lens flare that's around the sun. The problem is that the creature goes directly over it at a certain point, so I'm going to have to work that out. But let's take one thing at a time on this comp. So right here, see, that's too much of an effect right there. It wouldn't completely erase him, but maybe we can do something with transparency, or maybe a separate mask. Let's see. So what I want to do first is just track the sun, and let's bring this here. And it's not a really crazy camera move, so the computer's going to do a pretty good job of the in-betweens, I think, on this, as long as it generally stays around the sun area. And a lot of these frames, there's going to be no effect at all because there's no creature there. But I just want to sort of put that in the right place. And so as this creature here, the foreground, let's see what happens with the background creature. So the background creature gets a little bit obscured by it, which is actually kind of cool. Actually, what I think I want to do is expand it and just sort of make the effect even bigger, just for the sake of it, just for the sake of kind of like this cool effect thing. And we can actually back off on the visibility of it a little bit too, so that it does have a large effect area, but it's not as opaque. And then, and I can try different things too. Like I can make this maybe blending mode is like lighten instead of normal. Didn't seem to have much of an effect. Maybe add. That's bad. So maybe screen. I think we're going to end up going with normal, but I'm just trying something here. Okay, so let's just go back to normal for this particular shot. In most cases, you'd have to do some kind of other layering besides normal, but let's just leave this for now. And I'm going to push save again. So let's see. So this here, when the tail crosses, I'm trying to think, because it would actually kind of obscure that sun a bit in reality, the flare of the sun. It would sort of cut off the flare when it blocks the sun. The flare gets blocked, but it doesn't completely block it, so it only partially does. So I'm trying to think of what to do for that. If it completely obscured it, that's another matter. Like right in here, it almost does. So I'm trying to think of what to do here. I think what I'm going to do is try this. I'm going to try a little mask. Actually, what we could do is keyframe that opacity and see what happens. So just wait till he passes it. And then, let's see, so add keyframe. And then maybe like right here when it actually obscures it, I'll drop the visibility of this flare a little bit. Which I'm not sure if that will look weird. Let's see how this plays. First it has to load into memory. A lot of times you can't really see how the effect is going to look until you play it in real time. Sometimes it looks great on that single frame when you're laying masks down, and then you go, wow, it has to be 300% more visible or less visible. And actually right now I think it's a little bit overkill on the lower flare, if not the upper one as well. I like what's happening with the upper flare. The lower flare looks a little too big of an effect. So I'm actually going to remove the expansion and just keep it where it was. Let's try that again without the expansion. Let's see this. I think it's possible it's still too big. I thought that would look cool, that it kind of glows over that, but it doesn't look that cool to me right now. So I'm going to take this and I'm actually going to do the expansion in a negative. I'm gonna make it smaller of an effect than it is, because it just looks kind of almost painted on. And actually the top one looks a little bit like that too. Even though I like the effect, it looks a little too, it's traveling further outside of this pink lens flare. Let's see this now, than is reality. So I think sometimes the more subtle, the better. And big, loud effects sometimes don't cut it. And you gotta know kind of when. So I think this is gonna be better. By the way, it might be cool to put an actual lens flare on on that sun and track the lens flare on. But this is kind of how it rendered out of Unreal Engine. Actually, I like it better now. I like the subtlety. So it kind of, you see that glow from the sun and you see the flare at the top, but it's not overkill. And I like it that it's not overkill. Actually, this shot is actually really starting to work for me now. So the one thing that you're going to see is a little bit of a mistake, is you're going to see a shadow of this wing on the underside of the body. And that's because I had a bounce light underneath, and the bounce light had a shadow on it, and I probably should have had that shadow off so that the bounce light worked, but not the shadow of the wing, because there would not be a shadow from a bounce light on the ground. So what I was going to do is probably just remove that bounce light. I wasn't even sure if it really was necessary when I checked the file later. But I think I'm going to re-render this foreground creature at least. If not the whole thing, just re-render it. But just either get rid of that light underneath, or certainly get rid of the shadows on it. And the one thing is that you can see by the mountains on the bottom, there's a lot of fog in this scene, and yet these creatures are still pretty crisp. So what are we going to do about that? I can either render it again on a separate pass and wait for that render to finish, or I can hop in right here and roto those. So I have a choice. It's just the proper way to do it is probably re-render it, but then the other way to do it is for me to just roto those, and I want to just see how much the creatures are overlapping each other, to see how much of a pain that's going to be. He starts to overlap them here and there, there. So a little bit of a pain, a little bit of roto. Um, you know, and the proper way is to render those background flying creatures separate than the foreground one. But I think we have a good sense of this shot right now. And I'm actually pretty happy with it. One thing that I'm wondering about is if this shot, and some of the other shots too, need more of like a handheld feel to get rid of this CG look. And I'm wondering if that's something I should add to these shots where it looks like somebody's got a camera and they're actually filming this creature fly by kind of by surprise. Because right now it looks real sort of planned and it looks kind of CG because of the camera movement. And I think it might help to see that that movement of like a handheld, little bit of a kind of like a handheld look or a camera shake type deal. You can also see there is a goof on my camera track right there. They kind of drop down quickly right here. The track is less solid than the one that was done. I hand tracked in Lightwave for the flying creatures, but the Mocha track is actually perfect for the Saturn's rings. And I don't think that actually hurts anything to have the rings in the corner there. It just adds a little bit of visual interest to the shot. And it didn't hurt anything to have that the rings there. So I think the main thing I'm going to do now is re-render the flying creatures, and I want to re-render those with the shadow off. And I'm thinking too that I should render the flying creatures probably in 3 layers, to be honest. It's like, you know, because like I should have the distant birds, these 2 birds, and the foreground one on 3 layers, so I can sort of play with those. And before, by the way, there was problems with the flapping on this one, which I think have been fixed now. I think that looks pretty cool. And I like the speed of these flying creatures. I like that now. So this shot, I mean, it almost could be considered finished right now, but that shadow kind of bothers me. So what I'm going to do is here's the actual Lightwave shot, which I'm hoping Lightwave didn't crash. It just seems frozen. It really does. And I'm going to open the shot again. You can have multiple Lightwaves open, but this, oh boy, it's looking for that path. The content directory wasn't set to this particular scene. So let's see, let's do a little search. Okay. And so, gosh, I hope this isn't crashed, but it sure seems to be. It seems to be frozen. This one says not responding. I think that's this one, which isn't good because I did some dynamics on that foreground, and I didn't want to recalculate those dynamics. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to delete this foreground flying creature from this particular render. And I think I might know what happened. I set the HDRI image on this one to actually a very large image, and I think it might have crashed Lightwave. When I was messing around with it, I set it to a rather large background image, and I should have just done like a postage stamp little one, or even just had a gradient background. I'm also gonna delete this here, those two creatures, because I want to have full control over the kind of fog effect on the flying creatures in layers. I should have thought of this before rendering it all in one. And this one here is very unfortunate, but it appears to be, Lightwave appears to have crashed when I put that HDRI, which means I have to recalculate the shot before rendering the close-up again. But long story short, let's grab this one too. Wait, is that the... Let's see. I'm gonna make sure I'm deleting the right guys. Okay, yeah, that's one. So say delete this. Delete descendants, yes. So just check a few things. You can see Lightwave takes a little time to do that job. So I'm gonna say this one was the bounce light. And I just want to turn off shadows, even for the distant flying creatures, even though no one's going to see that. And then what I want to do is check my... This is what got me into trouble before, was changing the... putting a photo. I think this is fine for the distant birds. So here's what I want to do. Is say use background color for the render. So I'm trying to figure out why that's not shown up as black. So here's what I'm going to do. Okay, so it's showing the fog. Let me see what this is doing here. Let's see how this renders. I want to make sure this is rendering properly. Let's go down to 25. Let's go down to 6. Let's see how this renders. Okay, let's do a single frame. Deforming mesh, Lightwave's doing that trick before it actually starts rendering. And wow, just to do a test render is just going to take a while too, you know. So this tutorial is sort of bogging down now. I think we got the gist of it. Basically what I'm going to do is re-render these flying creatures on different levels so that I can control the fog on the shot and also get rid of that shadow on the wing, and then I think I can kind of call the shot done. Now I had thought about putting other items into this, possibly like little dust flakes flying by to add scale, which I can probably do is just tracked in. I can track the shot again, use the Mocha track, and put in some little insects flying around type thing, or little dust particles in the air, because it's very clean looking right now. And I think that will help dirty it up a little bit and make it look more to scale. Because we really are having a hard time telling how big that creature is and how big this scene is. So I hope you enjoyed the video. And I don't want to have people have to wait for these renders to finish. So I'll have to get back later on that. So please don't forget to subscribe. and put the push the bell so that you're notified of any future VFX Rex or Worlds videos that I'm doing. And if you feel like if you're a 3D artist or 2D artist or want to take part in Worlds in some way, then what you can do is reach out to me, and maybe you can help on this project. So I'm going to push abort here. The frame's done, and real quick we'll just check it. It looks normal here actually. It's black. You can see the small birds. Let's go to the alpha. Yeah, it looks good. So what we want to do is go back to 24 and go back to full scale. And I'm going to just go ahead and set this render off, and then I'll reach out with the rest of the video later. So let's just do this real quick. So frame 0 through 150. All those things are set. Global illumination is on. For some reason I turned off enabled this despike last time. And I also put the render tile size to full size. And then so let's go to output in Lightwave. And we're just going to say, let's make another folder that says shot 06 birds distance. Okay, and then we'll select that as our folder, and then we'll say here birds distance. Okay, and it's 32-bit PNG for the alpha channel. The camera's set up, everything appears to be good. Motion blur is on. So I'll just save the scene, save scene as, and we'll say birds distant rend. For render. And then I'll just go ahead and minimize Lightwave, and I'll push render scene and allow that to render, and it's going to take a certain amount of time, and then this appears to crash, so I'll have to relaunch that to render this flying creature and this flying creature on a path, and then this one on its own. So we have a little bit more control on the comp. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe and push the bell notification so you're notified of future videos. And look forward to doing more videos. I hope you find this entertaining and maybe informative. And let me know if there's if anyone has any comments or ideas. Thank you.